Did you know that the word homosexual did not appear in any English translations of the Bible until 1946? Now, this was brought to my attention this past week in a couple of TikTok videos that I wanted you to take a look at.
Oh, the word homosexual was never in the Bible. It wasn't in the Bible till 1946, and the word it replaced translates to pedophile. Wonder why they did it, must be a mystery.
So in this first video, there's a person who goes by Brenda Bishop. She is an ordained bishop in the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America, and she's got about 70,000 followers or so. So let's take a look at the second video.
The way that they edited the Bible to be anti-gay. Now you might be thinking, but the Bible is anti-gay. Dude, there are only two words, two, in the entire Bible that right now we think apply to being gay. The word is arsenokoitai. I'm totally mispronouncing that. I am confident that I am mispronouncing that. The word in Hebrew refers to child molesters. It wasn't until 1946 that anyone even tried to say that it referenced homosexuality. Let me repeat that, 1946. 1946 is when they made that adjustment to the Bible.
The second video is authored by a person who goes by the name of Involuntary Agnostic. And she makes very similar claims to those of Brenda Bishop. Now, here's the thing to keep in mind. They've got about combined maybe 100,000 followers on TikTok. And my guess is that the people who are following them accept what they're saying as being true, being authentic. In the first case, because the person is an ordained, ecclesiastical person, and so that carries some authority with it. And the other person speaks as if she knows what she's talking about. So I wanted to take a look and see what their specific claims are and what we can learn from those claims. So these are the two claims that come across from both authors. That the word homosexual did not occur in the Bible until 1946. That's the first issue we're going to talk about. The second is that the Greek word translated homosexual actually means child molester. And what comes across in the videos is this question as to whether this is the result of an anti-gay conspiracy. Now, who's behind the conspiracy? The authors don't say, but I would assume that they would probably say maybe it's the Christian community, Bible-believing community. Certainly the second author would lean in that direction. The first author doesn't really say, but my guess is it's probably very similar. So we need to answer the question, is this an anti-gay conspiracy? Is somebody out to disparage the gay community by their using the word homosexual in the translation? So I want to do what's called a diachronic study, a diachronic word study. A diachronic, it comes from two Greek words, the preposition dia, and chronic comes from chronos, so through time. Dia is through, chronos is time, through time. So we're going to do a study on the word gay. And the reason I'm choosing the word gay is because that's what the second author proposes, is that it's an anti-gay movement. So let's start there. So she is equating homosexual with gay. So I just went back in time to 1828 and looked in the Webster Dictionary. It was Noah Webster who was the founder of the Webster Dictionary. It later became the Merriam-Webster Dictionary. So back in 1828, if you were to do a search on gay, this is what would come up. The adjective means merry, airy, jovial, sportive, frolicsome. It denotes more life and animation than the word cheerful. And then they give an example. Brenda smiled and all the world was gay. But what I want you to see here is that the number 1 here means that this is the primary domain for the adjective and its meaning. Okay, this is called a semantic domain. When you look in a dictionary and you see number 1, number 2, number 3, number 1 is the primary use of the term. The second entry is fine, meaning showy, as a gay dress. And then finally, the third is inflamed or merry with liquor, intoxicated. And they put this little gloss in here, a vulgar use of the word in America. The noun form, an ornament, and they make a reference here in brackets that it's really not used in everyday use. So over here, if you now sped up in time, remember this is a diachronic study, so we're going through time from 1828 to 2022. And if you were to Google this, one of the main hits that comes up, I think it's the top hit actually, is Oxford Languages. And their number 1 domain for the adjective is that it refers to a person, homosexual, used especially of a man. And then they also give a sentence, the city's gay and lesbian people. Look what's happening here in number 2, in their second domain, and they have this word here, dated, which means it's going out of use in this sense, lighthearted and carefree. So back here in 1828, if you were to say, just talking to somebody in everyday usage, if you said gay, they would conjure up in their mind the idea of merry, airy, jovial, sportive, and so on. That would be the number 1 way that a person would have understood it in 1828. But coming forward in time, because language changes over time, language morphs with the cultures that use the language. And so by the time you get to 2022 and you say the word gay, the first thing that comes into somebody's mind is you are referring to a homosexual person, and they have here this second domain, dated. If you say that, people probably aren't going to walk away thinking you're talking about lighthearted and carefree, because the word is dated, because language changes over time. Now, if we did that same test, diachronic test with the word homosexual, if we again go back to our trusted American Dictionary of the English Language, Webster's Dictionary from 1828, and you were to type in the word homosexual in a dictionary search, the result is it's not found, because it wasn't a language or a term that was being used in the common vernacular. People just weren't using that term to describe a certain activity that was occurring, a sexual activity between a man and a man. A man who performs this type of relationship with another man, this sexual relationship, it was occurring in 1828. They were very familiar with the activity, but they just didn't say that the person who was doing it was a homosexual. They had a different term for it. And so if you did the search, that's what you would find. Well, does not register, does not compute. If you went around to the common person on the street and asked, do you know if there are any homosexuals in this area, they would look at you and say, well, we really don't know what you're talking about, or probably something like that. So if we fast forward from 1828 to 1913, and you put that word in to search it, well, this is the result that I got when I did it. Word not found. So again, by 1913, the word homosexual is not being used in everyday conversation. So therefore, you won't find it in the dictionary. Let's take a look at the various translations prior to 1946. So the question then naturally gets begged, well then, what was the term that was being used? Well, in 1901, the American Standard Bible translated the Greek word. And I should say here that the New Testament was originally written in Greek. The Old Testament was written in Hebrew and some parts of it in Aramaic. So this revolves around a certain Greek word in the original that is being translated into English. So the translation of the American Standard in 1901 of that particular Greek word is abusers of themselves with men. The Rotherham Emphasized Bible in 1902 translates it sodomites. An American translation in 1923, Given to Unnatural Vice. The Concordant Literal Version of 1926, sodomites. New Translation 1926, sodomites. The Lamsa Bible in 1933, men who lie down with males. So all of these terms refer to the very same action, a man having sexual relationships with a man and being labeled a homosexual. They all refer to the same act or the same person in real life. They're just using different terminology to describe it, because that's the way that language works and changes over time. Now, a Bible is designed to put the Bible into the common language of the person. This all came out of the Reformation period. In the Reformation period, they believed that the average person should have access to the words of the Bible in their common language. And so you see Bible translations are always coming out with new translations. 1901, 1923, 1933, 1946, 1960, 1977. Bible translators are constantly trying to keep up with this flux in the language, and that's why the word homosexual doesn't appear in any of these earlier versions. It's not because it's an anti-gay movement in 1946, it's just that the language has changed. So where did the word homosexual come from? Well, in my research, like many words, it was coined at a technical level, in this case in the school of psychoanalysis in the late 1800s, before making its way into the common vernacular. That's at least as far as I can tell. So the word was around in the late 1800s, but it was really only used by professional people in scientific endeavors. And that happens often, that it just kind of filters its way down into the common language eventually. And that's what happened from the late 1800s to the time you get to 1946. It had become common enough that those who were translating the Revised Standard Version said, hey, you know, this word homosexual probably is the best fit to communicate what's going on with two people of the same sex, predominantly talking about males, and so we need to use that term now so the average person can understand what it is that we're talking about. So that addresses this first issue. The word homosexual did not occur in the Bible until 1946. Now, this second question is a little bit more involved to address, and so I'm going to do that in a separate video. So you can stay tuned for that, and I'll post it when I've completed my work on it.